Hey everybody, it's Noah Parker here with Know It All Climbing. Today's your Know It All Climbing tale of the day, where we cover the unsung heroes and silent crushers of the last 3 millennia in climbing. Today's number 77, Jasper McMurphy. So Jasper was part of the vaunted 2004 class of climbers and included Connor Dugan Sachs, Skylar Harrison Druke, and Galen Floyd Wilkes. Amongst others. And so at this time, climbing is really at the forefront of American pop culture. You have these young climbers who are really glammed up and haughty and seeking, media attention and getting into spats, he said with each other. They're attaining groupies. It's kind of the metric by which you are judged as a climber. How many groupies you have, how many paparazzi are, stationed outside your chateau. The Big Wall Boys are playing, sold out shows from Tokyo to Rio de Janeiro. You have real world climbing. You have, e-climbing today, popular climbing mechanics. And so in that context, Jasper's a much different climber. These other, Connor and Skylar and Galen are really, really seeking media attention, available for any interview. Showing up in commercials, music videos, and you have Jasper's. He's much quieter. He seems, like he seems to spend a lot of time just climbing, actually, and trying to perfect his technique, and work hard and work on his fitness and everything. And these other guys see that as a threat. They see that as a return to climbing has-been, which is just guys hanging out in the the valley or the Cordilleras or Moab and just climbing, hanging out and chatting, that's it. So they see Jasper as it seems like his climbing philosophy is a lot more on the lines of a working class climber, a proletarian, Marxist, Hegelian, dialectical climber, class consciousness, distribution of wealth type of climber. And so they try and ostracize him, but it doesn't really work. But it opens up this whole rivalry, as we shall see with these other prodigies. The first time that I heard about Jasper as a climber was the spring of 2004 qualifier at the 33A, the Ostracizer. So the Ostracizer is a free solo tandem climb. So you must climb with your teammate. You're connected by ropes, but you'll have no safety ropes. And it was against the Croatian and Japanese teams. And the thing with the Ostracizer is it's a free solo route, which is pretty much fine in of itself. Most guys can handle that. But there's a pit of alligators beneath you, and these alligators have not been fed in 3 days. And these alligators have the ability to climb, so they have climbing shoes on, and they start following you. So they're given climbing chalk. They can also send it. Sometimes the alligators actually win. So anyway, Jasper's climbing partner is Corey McMahon, and on the day of the climb, Corey shows up and he's not looking so hot. He is pallid, he's shaking, he seems disoriented. And as the route begins, it's fine. They start moving up, pitch by pitch, gaining, sending it. Keeping level with the Croatian and the Japanese teams. But then Corey begins, climbing down the wrong way. So he seems to be attracted to these alligators, and he begins climbing the other way towards them. And he seems something's happening there where he wants to go meet the alligators. And Jasper's, pulling him. I'm trying to, cajoling him. And then eventually Corey actually just passes out. He just inexplicably just loses consciousness on the route. And so, a surprise to a lot of us, Jasper didn't just cut him loose. He went down and retrieved him and put him on his shoulder. And just for context, a climber's a pretty significant human being at this point. You're probably consuming, 23 to 28,000 calories a day, probably 7 to 16x the protein, somewhere in the range of like 9 to 28x the fat. And so you get this pretty significant, heavy climber on your shoulder, and he begins climbing. And it was really incredible. I mean, people were standing and cheering because Jasper managed to outpace both the Croatian and the Japanese teams. He won by a 40 millionth of a second, 1/8 of an inch. You can see his nose, just by his nose, essentially the camera, you can see his nose just barely bypass that of the Croatian Japanese teams to top out first. Really impressive feat. The second route that comes to mind is the Pan Pacific Challenge in the summer of 2005, which took place at the 561 U known as depth charge. So depth charge takes place in the Mariana Trench, 36,000 feet. You descend to the seafloor. You wear a wetsuit. You have a oxygen mask, oxygen tank, but you must be wearing your climbing shorts, climbing shirt, climbing shoes, climbing chalk bag, climbing brush, and you must have chalk on your hands at all times. So the judges actually know you're part of you're actually trying to send the route. You're not just a tourist. So Jasper's paired against Connor Dugan Sachs, and Connor Dugan Sachs is probably Jasper's chief rival at this point. They're both from California. It's a classic tale of California, NorCal, SoCal rivalry. And it's a real tragic tale as well in a lot of ways. These two men who could have been brothers, could have been best friends, but they're separated by geography. And in that chasm just emerges all manner of enmity and hatred between the two. Pretty much primarily from Connor, it seems. Jasper doesn't really say anything in response to him. But the night before the climb, Connor levies one of the most serious allegations in that you can against another climber, which is that Jasper was actually poaching his groupies. And Connor thought this would throw him off, but it had no effect. So they're climbing. You're climbing in this volcanic tube. It's really narrow. It's really technically difficult climb. You're just barely in there. You're climbing, and it's really crimp holds, and it's and jugs. You're just trying to just keep gaining and sending it. Meanwhile, if you make the slightest error, your oxygen tank can be ripped off, which would be suboptimal to say the least. So Jasper's in, man versus man in these tubes, mano a mano with Connor Dugan Sachs. The race begins, and Jasper's takes off ahead, and he's way ahead of Connor. Whatever his fitness regimen is, whatever his dietary regimen is, whatever his coaching is really on point. Connor, to surprise a lot of people, Connor's the son of an LA film executive in Malibu, who's got a lot of money and was doing all kind of nutrient injections, protein infusions, mitochondrial adjuvants from baboons, psychological stress testing, VR climbing sessions in impossible scenarios. Whatever Jasper's secret is it's working, and he's way ahead. He's in pole position. He's on track to unseat Klaus Guterman's 1972 record for seafloor to Pacific breach at depth charge. But what happens is that Jasper encounters another climber in the tube. So what happened in the previous heat is that the climber in his tube had not finished the route, had not reached the surface. The organizers just assumed he had perished and had been ejected, according to protocol. But it turns out that he had actually been bitten by a rabid eel and had experienced rapid onset of eel mania, where he was convinced that he was an extremely pregnant, extremely famished eel mother, and smelled Jasper's body heat from 4,000 feet above and began climbing down, ravenous for flesh. And he reaches Jasper, begins assailing him. He's biting him. He's trying to whip him with his tail, which are trying to any way he can. He's chewing through the wetsuit. He's speaking in tongues. It's insane. Sorry, I just get emotional remembering this. And so Jasper has no idea what's happening, and he's trying to he's kind of just trying to keep gain and sending it, just keep this difficult route. Meanwhile, this guy coming at him, and he's trying to make sure his oxygen tank is not being ripped off. And anyway, he's wrestling with this guy in the tube. They're punching, and it's insane. Suddenly you're in a death match. Under probably 18,000 feet below the surface at this point. In a pretty high stakes climbing event, and. And so what ends up happening is that Jasper has been training in judo and gets this guy in a lock and throws him down. And the guy reaches up and grabs Jasper's climbing shoe and rips it off, devours it, and is never seen again. But at this point, Jasper's lost serious ground to Connor, and Connor ends up prevailing. And it's a coup for Connor in terms of the media coverage and everything. He's vanquished this foe. It's an incredible comeback. It only emerged, years later what actually happened. So it was a real tragedy in a lot of ways. Jasper didn't get the credit he deserved there. The other route that comes to mind is the 2006 European Regional Qualifier that took place in a small Spanish town I'm completely forgetting the name of. It's a 581Q called Inquisition. So it's a really incredible route. The route itself has these beautiful azurite rock, these really lovely rock. It's actually my countertops. Incredible little crimp holds, and so it's an amazing route. It's got a lot going for it, as I'll explain. So it's really a love letter to the 1350s siege lifestyle that was popular in medieval Europe at the time. So the organizers spent probably, $50 million, outfitting this, Moorish castle with all manner of, siege weaponry and various, implements to, deter the climbers from actually completing the route or sometimes even beginning it. So on that note, the problem begins before you even begin climbing, because once you land at the small airport, it begins getting assailed from the nearby castle with, catapults and trebuchets, which are these long catapults that have these long rope arms hurling two-tone stones at the station at these pretty much lame duck taxied airplanes, and then you get out, you're getting your luggage, and there's boulders raining down on the ceiling, flaming balls of fire coming at you. Once you get your luggage, you get in the van, and then you're on the highway, and the highway's pretty lined up towards the castle, and the castle has ballista, which are essentially giant stationary crossbows hurling man-sized spears at you, and you're just hoping that neither you nor your driver get impaled, or ideally not a tire either. And then you get out of the route, and you're doing your typical stretching, chalking up, meditating, yoga, positive visualization. Meanwhile, there are Welsh longbowmen on the battlements launching raining arrows down at you. There's mangonels, which are essentially smaller catapults hurling superheated gravel, scalding anyone beyond recognition who they hit. And so it's a real challenging route to even get there. And then you got to run towards the route. You got to get there. You got to chalk up. You got to look at the route, kind of see, choose your angle. And then once you begin climbing, there are platforms with religious fanatics with all manner of melee weaponry trying to decapitate or otherwise dismember you. There's guys with halberds, or essentially long spears with blades on them, swinging at you. There's tridents. There's nets being thrown at you. There's murder holes with crossbows. There's boiling oil coming down at you. So there's a lot going on. It's really a dynamic problem. We call it a organic and dynamic climbing problem that you have to solve. And so there's this question, a philosophical question: how do you meet this problem? So typically, climbers have chosen to meet the arrow where it's at. So you armor up. You get a serious hauberk. You get a helm. You get greaves. Sometimes you might even bring a sword so you can smite the religious fanatics down that are trying to attack you when you're climbing. But then you're essentially a knight. You're essentially a knight climbing up. Just heavy armor you can barely see. You're just this knight climbing up this really difficult with a little delicate azurite rock, and you're just so that approach certainly has its pitfalls. During Jasper's climb, this was actually taken to its greatest logical extent, where one outfit of climbers actually attempted to fool the route by building a Trojan horse. Unfortunately, they decided to build it in the shape of a climbing shoe, which apparently strongly resembled the vision of Memnon that the religious fanatics had. So they trained their fire on it, and it was quickly immolated. But it's interesting to see what Jasper did. So Jasper took the opposite approach. He took the speed run. So he showed up in his climbing shorts, climbing shoes, climbing chalk bag, climbing brush, and his state-of-the-art industrial climbing shades, which allowed him to see through any kind of searing or molten material. So at least if you do get covered in boiling oil, at least you can try and, top out and send the route before you perish. But what he brought, his one little trick was that he brought his fencing foil. So he had this little practice fencing foil. And if you watch the route, you can see how he's climbing, he's triangulating, really great technique. And then in his free hand, he's using his foil to disarm religious fanatics and poke guys in the eye who are trying to shoot him with crossbows, and he's, hitting the other climbers away, dislodging them from the route. And, and he's slicing ropes on mangonels so they shoot backwards. And he's, slapping aside arrows from the longbowman being, shot directly down at him. And he's waving it rapidly the whole time he's climbing, to kind of as a sort of subterfuge as he's climbing. So he was able to top out in record time, defeated Klaus Gutermann's 1974 land speed record. Really impressive climb. Got him a bunch of sponsorship. He was able to retire comfortably, and now he's a fixture of the local indoor Santa Cruz bouldering scene, and has decided to spend his time bringing internet to the place where he's from. This kind of forlorn peripheral town called Manchester, California, up in Northern California, scoured by subarctic winds, 300 days out of the year. Anyway, that's number 77. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This has been your know-it-all climbing tale of the day. Whether you're on the climbing wall in the gym, or the Cordilleras, or Moab, or Utah, or the Valley, just keep gaining and sending it and crushing it as much as humanly possible. Have a great day.